to Colleagues Getting Coffee. My name is Annelies James, and today I am joined by Keiran O'Toole of Rock Clothing. Hello, Keiran.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Excellent. So, Rock Clothing is a business with a difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Rock Clothing is basically a clothing company, but we use our profits to run anti-bullying workshops in schools and youth groups.
That's amazing.
It's taken quite a long time to get it to the stage we're at now, but we have two different programs that we do. The first one being our anti-bullying ambassador program, which is where we go into schools directly working with young people and train them to become anti-bullying ambassadors.
Okay.
Because our mission is to bring young people to the forefront of tackling bullying, so it ties in quite nicely.
They're the ones who have to lead it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's happening to them and to their friends.
Yeah, definitely. And then the second one is, last year we did the first ever anti-bullying conference in Portsmouth, at the Portsmouth Guild Hall, where we saw 732 young people come together to talk about the agenda of tackling bullying.
I have to say, just over the last few years really, that anti-bullying has become sort of more cool, and I think your sort of company really helps with that, because previously, like, anti-bullying is always a bit like just a bit naff, and it's like the teachers saying it, but actually this is a great way then to bring young people on board. Yeah,
definitely. So when I was at school, I remember in primary school we had like one assembly a year. It lasted about 20 minutes, wasn't really worth it, if you like, and we didn't really care about it. And then when I get to secondary school, I actually directly experienced bullying, which is why I do what I do. But again, it was just like the odd assembly, which wasn't actually impacting the situation.
Well, because you need like hands-on tips of how to deal with this, don't you?
Yeah,
and you need support, and it needs to be easily accessible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I imagine that you find quite a lot of advocates and people who want to get involved and on board, because potentially a lot of people have been bullied. I've been bullied.
Yeah.
I was professionally bullied by somebody in work. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
But you must find that you get advocates because of that.
Yeah, we have a lot of people reaching out to us asking if they can support, whether it's just by wearing a t-shirt or a hoodie, or whether it's actually directly come to our events and help on the day, or even on a larger scale if people want to help us financially and support us that way.
That's amazing. So you actually sponsor specific sports groups as well, don't you?
Yeah, so as part of our sort of brand awareness, we sponsor a 16-year-old motorbike racer called Fenton Harrison Seabright. So not this season just passed, but the season before was his first year racing in the UK, and he was crowned the champion of KTM, so which was pretty cool. And then I'm actually going out to Valencia in a couple of days to go and see him race out there, so that'll be pretty cool.
And that definitely increases the coolness, doesn't it? Because essentially it's the clothes, but the clothes stand for something, and therefore the thing becomes cooler. Yeah,
so we that's our sponsorship deal. We're his clothing sponsor, so he wears our hoodies, our t-shirts, our hats, whatever, out and about, and he helps promote what we do.
So setting up a business, how do you find that? How was that? Because that's a big learning curve for someone younger.
Yeah, so I set up my business at 16 years old, so I'm now 18. I did it whilst I was at college, and it affected my work at college so much, but I knew that my heart was in rock clothing. Yeah. Not to say that I didn't care about college, because I did. Some
people just know that they want to make the money and they want to get out there and they want to do good. Yeah. And sometimes education can seem like a hindrance, because you're like, you have to go, it's quite formulaic, you have to learn, you know?
Yeah.
Some people are just ready to get out there.
I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to, I was spending time where I should have been at college, contacting other people to see if they'd help with rock clothing. I was spending time that I should have been at college designing hoodies, and so that was where I wanted to be. Like I take days off and do an anti-bullying workshop in a school.
You're like, they're like going to have a go at you about this, like, where were you? And you're like, well, actually I was doing an anti-bullying workshop, and they're like, well.
Yeah, they're like, can we tell him off?
I know, right. That's hardcore. I love it.
I think for anyone who tells you it's easy to start a business, they're lying, because it is really, really difficult. Like I spend, some days I'll be up at 6 a.m, start working, and through till 3 a.m. the next day. It's really hard work.
How do you find support for that? Like, how do you get support for starting a business, especially when you're younger? Like, do you know where to go? And
I think I'm really bad at trying to find support. I think I I try and do it myself, and I purposely go out and research on how I can do it myself.
Yeah.
So people have been telling me for the last 2 years that I need to have an official accountant, but I think I've just learned how to do it myself.
Okay.
But I think there is support out there. You know, there's some really good organisations that have supported me personally, like Unlock. We've had people like Unlimited, the funding organisation. There's also been other organisations like that have helped in different areas. So like social media, a company called Digital Dinos have been so helpful, because before I started my business, I wasn't really hot on social media.
Yeah.
Didn't really know how it worked, and they've just supported me to try and to grow our social media presence, really.
Talking about tips then and helping people, what would you say? Because obviously people still get bullied, that's in school and professionally.
Yeah.
What would be your top tips for A, dealing with it, or maybe spotting someone that's being bullied?
Yeah,
what
so my biggest tip for dealing with bullying, I use this tip because I personally didn't do it when I was at school. It's just to speak to someone. So when I was at school, I kept everything to myself. I didn't really talk to anyone, and I think that's why it got worse and worse.
Yeah.
So my biggest tip to deal with it is just talk to someone, whether it's your best friend, your trusted adult, or even if it's just like writing in a diary just to get it out of your head.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to talk to someone, or just get it out of your head. And then I think my biggest tip to spot bullying. See, bullying can come in so many different ways, and it can affect people really differently.
Well, especially now with digital, what the hell, it's a nightmare.
It is. So I always talk to like my mum and my dad, and when they were in school, if bullying was to happen, it'd stay at school, because they didn't have Facebook, Instagram and Twitter and all that sort of stuff, so it wouldn't be able to follow them home, whereas now it can.
It's like relentless.
It's 24/7, It happens on the playground, and then it'll be on Facebook during the evening, and it's really, really upsetting, really. So I think my tip to spot bullying is, if you see someone who's isolated or a change in behaviour, doesn't necessarily mean they're getting bullied, but it could be a really good sign. So just go and talk to them, try and include them.
So obviously, being younger in business, I'm not going to keep banging on about this, but being younger in business, how have you found that? Do people treat you differently, or are people quite welcoming of that?
Yeah, it can go in sort of two ways. I think because from a young age I've been quite mature. From a young age, I think it's helped me quite a lot. Trying to run a business at 16, 17, 18, and people have been quite welcoming. But on the other hand, I think it's the more official things that are difficult. Like opening a bank account was my biggest like difficulty. So I did manage to get it sorted when I was 17, and I sort of jumped a hoop. I put my mum as a director. She opened the bank account for me because I couldn't do it until I was 18.
I wouldn't even think about that. That's really funny.
The first year I was using my own personal bank account, like a savings account. And it was getting too stressful, like knowing, trying
ins and outs. It's nice to have it completely separate.
Yeah, now it's completely separate. It's a lot more helpful. But I think that was one of my biggest frustrations. I was like, how can you give me a personal account but you can't give me a business account? Just do it. And then when I went back a couple of weeks later with my mum, they were like, oh, okay.
You're like, oh yeah, she's my business partner and she makes me dinner.
Washes my clothes, irons.
You're like, I'm a businessman, but she still does all this stuff. Amazing. So what would be your tips then for people starting out in business? What would be your top 3 things that you've learned so they can fast track through?
I think my first one is listen but don't listen. So listen to useful tips that will help you get further, but don't listen to the people that are trying to build barriers. Because I had a lot of that, people saying that it won't work, and just don't listen to that.
There's a lot of naysaying, isn't there? But actually, if you've got the drive and the vision to make it happen, you will make it happen. Yeah,
definitely. My second one is get out there and network. There is no way I'd be where I am now without the people that have supported me, and I wouldn't have met half of those people if I didn't go out to networking events, to different events. You get out there, talk to people. And I remember the first networking event I ever went to, someone I met this guy, and he said, "Have you got a business card?" I was like, "No,
Yeah.
I haven't." After me and him finished our conversation, I walked away really quickly, wrote down my things, and I wrote down my name, my phone number, my email, and I drew the Rock Clothing logo.
Okay.
So it looked like a business card. And I was like, "I told you I had a business card." And got an email, and that guy actually sponsored our event.
That's amazing.
One of our events of £1,000. He just said because it was so creative, I really like it. So it's just doing things that maybe are out of the ordinary.
Okay.
So
So what's your third tip?
My third tip would probably be have a goal.
Okay.
Because it's really easy to go off on different tangents, but I think from the very start, create a goal that you want to get to, and then always ask yourself, is there support in that goal?
Yeah.
So I've had so many different proposals and opportunities, but it would have taken me away from my original goal.
Yeah.
So it's create a goal and always ask yourself, when something new comes up, is this supporting my goal? And if it's a no, possibly don't do it.
Yeah. It's very easy to get off track, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you lose your messaging and people don't identify, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I did that rock clothing thing one time.
Yeah.
Totally failed. Okay. How then is your proposition different? So you go into schools, and other companies do enterprise and other bits and bobs with schools. What do you do that's different from maybe other companies?
So I think there's a mass amount of organisations that go into schools and work with young people on a variety of different agendas. But I think they just go in one day, they do the event, and then they maybe not see them young people again. They may not be able to know whether that event was successful. Whereas for us, we will go in for a day, we'll do our anti-bullying ambassador training, and we'll work with those young people, but by the end of that session, the cohort that we've worked with will implement projects that they've decided to create into the school over the following months after that training, which we can work with the school to directly work with them young people doing those projects, or attend those projects, or support them in any way that we can. So I think that we're different because we work with those young people over a prolonged period of time. And
also you're empowering them to do it themselves. So what's an example of a really good project that you've seen a student do?
Oh, a really good project. Oh, there's loads. There's so many. I think one of the really good projects that I've seen, can I say two?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was one, we worked with a school called Priory, Priory Secondary School, and there was a group of young people that wanted to create an interactive assembly.
Okay.
But they didn't want the assembly to be indoors, so they took them outside. They worked with the whole school, and they wanted to get the message across about the imbalance of power.
Okay.
So they did that by having two actors, and one of them had a T-shirt that said victim, and the other one had bully. The victim had 4 water balloons, and the bully had about 50.
Okay.
And they threw water balloons at each other. So the bully had all these water balloons and could carry on, and when the victim ran out and couldn't throw any more, they were still getting balloons thrown at them, which was a really nice way of showing that message.
And quite powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was a really powerful idea. The second one, which they haven't actually implemented it yet because we only did the training a couple of days ago, was with Charter Academy. They really like drama in school, and they wanted to create this performance of a situation of bullying, and then pause the performance and ask the audience how they could stop that from happening, or ask them what they should do, or something like that. So that was a really nice idea, and we're going to work with them in the next couple of weeks on how they can implement that and start planning that, and get the ball rolling. So,
this is such a nice area to work in, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I think for me, because I've experienced it firsthand, seeing young people, because I can like, I've been to so many workshops from all these different organisations, and the young people just can be like this,
disengage,
and, not always, but sometimes, and I haven't had one workshop yet with Rock Clothing where they've been bored or not wanted to be there. Maybe in the first 5 minutes, but being so energetic and that it's just changed, and they've been so powerful, and seeing the ideas that they come up with at the end of the session is just really.
So how did you model that then, building the workshops so they were engaging?
I think it just took time. You know, it did take time. Our first ever workshop we did was with a school called St Jude's Primary, and the deputy head, male head, gave us some really great ideas. Because we went to her with a proposal, said, you know, this is what we want to do. It's the first ever one we've done, so we could be our trial school. And she said, I love it, but what about this? This could make it even more engaging.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah. And the idea was, because we're a clothing company, she said, why don't you just give every student a T-shirt, and then they can draw on them T-shirts an anti-bullying T-shirt. Yeah. I was like, what a great idea. Yeah. So we've sort of used that workshop as well, and we've done it before we created our anti-bullying ambassador training. We sort of did loads of different bespoke anti-bullying workshops in different schools, and then I sat down with a group of like some individuals from my team, and we just said, you know, we really like that bit, we really like that bit, we really like that bit, let's draw it all together. And then we sort of went, well, this is great, but what are we missing? So it's like, well, we should really have something that really specifies on cyberbullying, or we're missing something from that area. And we just worked on it, and then we had a couple of trial anti-bullying ambassador sessions, and it just went from there, really.
Love it. Brilliant. Okay, so how can people find your clothes, buy your clothes, get involved with the project? What can they do?
So if anyone wants to firstly buy clothes, we have all of our social media, so we have Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And we also have our website, which is www.rockclothing.org. And on that it talks about the workshops as well. So if anyone wants to get involved with our workshops, then they can just send us an email or a message on Instagram, and we can go from there.
I'm going to ask you one final question. I don't normally ask this right at the end, but I'm going to, random, because I can do what I like. What would you say, obviously we talked about slogans, what would be your key takeaway, one message or one quote you've come across that you're like, bam?
I think and I've only learnt this recently, I only heard of it recently, and I want to take it, I want to make this slogan such a big thing, was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, work together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, can I get a tattoo of that? Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been amazing.
Cheers. Thank you.